Hello and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to tell you about my new and improved rear seat delete. Welcome back and thanks for being here. My name is Scott, and if you've been watching for a while, then you know that I have tried a rear seat delete in the past. I'll link that video up here. And I took it out because I just found it impractical, and I noticed that if I put an object in the back that it would just slide all over and wind up in the floor behind the driver's seat or passenger seat. Well, fast forward 2 years. It's already been 2 years since I shared that rear seat delete with you, and now I'm carrying a refrigerator full-time in the car. I have absolutely no need for rear seat passengers, and I'm doing more ham radio stuff with the car these days, and so I like to be able to carry my ham radio accessories with me without them being in the front seat or on the floor or wherever. So I decided to bring back the rear seat delete. Well, it didn't take me much time to conclude that I wanted to make some improvements. And so this here is the improvement. Now let me show you the old rear seat delete real quick. It's a little dirty, but I had carpeted the whole thing, and the way the sides were finished was just a little crude. It looked all right. In fact, if you've got a two-door, this will work just fine. You don't need what I'm about to show you, but there was no locking mechanism to keep this from lifting out and coming undone in the event of an accident, or even, well, I've told you that I like to fly over railroad tracks with reckless abandon. So if I do something that unweights the car, then this setup wouldn't do anything to prevent the doors and the whole thing from coming undone from the front of the car, just having everything fly up in the air. I wanted to fix that. I also decided that I wanted to add some ventilation to the mix, and I thought about cutting some holes in that rear seat delete and adding the fans, but then I just decided to go all new. So here is the new setup. It's based entirely off of that one, but you can see that I have added ventilation to the mix. I'll get to the ventilation in a second. Here is the familiar shape of the frame, and if you remember, I was using just these little inserts for the sides. Well, now I have sides cut in, and all these are trim pieces. They're not structural at all, and they don't support any weight. In fact, they don't even touch the floor. I know somebody had expressed a concern about scratching the plastic on the side of the car, but the bottom here doesn't even touch the inside where it's going to go down. And I also added some tie downs to help with things coming unweighted in the front, and I'll show you how these work in just a second. Let me share with you some critical measurements, and to do that I'm going to show you this. This is my template. I had basically made this template from the old setup. My dimensions were good. I did make a few small improvements, and so the critical dimensions on this piece right here, always 5 inches. With this being 5 inches, that'll make sure that the doors or the floor, if you decide not to do doors, that'll make sure that it is level with the trunk. So perfectly level, so 5 inches here. And then from here to here, mine's a little shorter, so I'm going to just tell you 22 inches, and I'll show you why I wish I had put in that extra little bit of length right here. So 22 inches from edge to edge, 20 inches from here, from the edge to the center of this hole, and you'll see what this hole is for in a moment, and then 1/2 inch down. And so what I did is I started with a piece of wood that was, I think I'd cut this to about 7 inches, and so that gave plenty of room to come down here and do cutouts. These pieces here are pretty much the shape of where the seat cushion used to go, and then this here is a cutout for my wiring, as is this. I think I have wire passing through these places here. I'm going to try to find a way to scan it and then make it available for download if you're interested. This measurement here is the one that is most likely to trip people up. Let me jump in here with a couple of quick announcements. First, I had shown you this template earlier in the video. It might have been seconds ago. And I said that I wanted to scan this so that you could download it, so I could share this template and allow you to use it to make your own. And I've been successful with that. What I did was I traced my template onto this piece of poster board. And so this poster board is now scanned. I took it to a sign shop and had them scan it. And now I have a link in the video description below if you want to download it and use it yourself. Now, the page is 11 inches tall and 24 inches wide, so I don't think you're going to be able to print it on your home printer, but I'm sure it wouldn't be terribly expensive to take it to a sign shop and then have them print it on poster board. Once on poster board, all you have to do is just cut around the outline and then lay that down on a piece of wood and trace it. The poster board will be thick enough for you to trace around it with a pen, and then just use a jigsaw to cut. Now, one thing that I will say about my cuts here is when you're tracing, make sure you put the template along the edges of the wood, because this wood, this is the wood as it came from the shop. So this is already a square corner. This is already a straight edge. And so work at the corners of your plywood, MDF, or whatever you're using. And so basically, if you make this cross cut at 21.5 inches, then the rest of it you just cut with a jigsaw. You can maybe cut this with a straight edge as well. This is 5 inches, and otherwise everything just traces out fine. I have again, I have a link in the video description below. If you're interested in donating $1 or $2 to support me on this, feel free. I've got a donate button on my About page, but it's not required. Feel free to download and even distribute if you want. I don't really need money for this, but I'm just giving you an opportunity if you want to support me. I had mentioned my old rear seat delete. I've been asked by people who would like to get their hands on it, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to do so. Check in the video description below. I'll tell you how you can do that, and when it's gone, it's gone. I will say that it is gone. So, yeah. All right, let's go back to that other guy. I do not have templates for these side wings here, but you can start with this, and then it winds up being cut off about right here, and then just sand it down until it fits the way you want it to fit. But that's where I got these from. So these two are shaped fairly similarly until I get back here to where it would then taper up to fit the opening. Also present on this, this here is a tie-down point where I can bolt the doors down, and my previous setup didn't feature that. And so this is very important for holding everything together. I also have this pass-through for the control cables for my ham radio stuff, and a little pass-through right here for some power that I'm sending to the front of the car. And then, let me see, I'll give you a better look at how I trimmed the wiring back there. I basically just have those strapped up and trimmed neatly, and the power plugs in here. This is a thermostat, and so it only turns on these fans once my equipment gets up to 90 degrees. And it's not going to necessarily cool the area. It's just going to force heat out so that hopefully it doesn't get terribly hot. The hottest I've ever seen it get in there is maybe 130 degrees, and that was during a 100% duty cycle torture test. Under normal conditions, it really doesn't get terribly hot in there. Maybe 110 degrees, and the equipment is okay there. But we'll see if having some cooling back there will help keep things cooler. Maybe around 100, we'll see. A little more information about my ventilation. I have 4 of these 3-inch USB powered fans, and each one moves 26 cubic feet per minute. So the combination of the 4 of them moves 104 cubic feet per minute. These doors in my rear seat delete, as well as the trunk floor, none of it is airtight, and so there are leaks through here, but my goal is to have some air flowing through the equipment area. And of course, in order for the air to flow, there has to be a way for the air to get out. And so you may have already noticed that I've cut some holes back here in this trim panel for RF cables to pass through. And I chose these trim panels because they can be easily replaced for not a lot of money if I ever decide I want to go back or sell the car. So what I did was I made the holes even bigger, and now there is definitely a place for the air to go so it doesn't pressurize and just come out through the leaks. And there is a little bit of airflow. It's not a hurricane coming through here, but it is airflow. And so that means to me that heat will be ejected out of here, and because the air is being drawn in from the front of the car, hopefully where the air is cooler from air conditioning, it's not necessarily refrigeration for my equipment, but it is heat removal. That is my goal here. So I'm not going to be able to really put it to the test because now is the onset of fall, and so I won't really be able to see the effects until next summer, but I am confident that it will be better than nothing at all. All right, let's go ahead and install this, and I will show you more details. Oh, you can see here where I have carpeted and wrapped it along the bottom. And so I didn't carpet everything. As you can see, I did not carpet the inside like I had on the other one. I didn't really care for the way the carpet wrapped through on the other one because it comes up at the edges, and I don't like that. This stuff here I hope will stay put. We'll see. All right, let's put it in. First we'll maneuver the piece in here. Be a little careful not to beat it on the sides of the car or anything. And so remember the holes I pointed out, those are going to go on these. These are the hinges, quote unquote hinges, for the seat back. So I'm making use of these. These are very structural, and that will hold everything in place. And so what I got to do is, I can only line up one at a time. Oh, I think I might see why I didn't cut this longer. See that right there? As I put that in, I needed this to clear. So my idea to make that longer might not work. So I told you 22 inches, but maybe this 21 that I have here, I did that for the rotation of it. All right, let me come on over here and fix the other side. And this will flex. You just have to be a little careful with it. See, I'm flexing that in there, and I just have to bring it in here. Oh, I went too far. It's hard to, I can't see. I'm trying to stay out of the way of the camera. All right, so now that is in. And so at this point, I'll demonstrate what I was talking about, how the whole thing can pivot up, right, in the event of an accident. And I don't know how well you can see. I guess you might be able to see in this photo here how I wouldn't mind having another inch right there. But if I had that extra inch, then whenever I go to install it, it wouldn't want to pivot properly. So yeah. Oh, and by the way, I didn't say anything, but I have this piece of carpet in here. It's installed a little crudely, but it's just to make it look a little bit better than the open under area here. So I'm not going to bother showing you how I did it. I bought the 4 foot by 3 foot piece, and I hardly cut it. All my cutting is back here in the back, and in the front I just tucked it up under the factory carpet, and then I push it through this little push button. I had removed it and push it through to line it up, and I think it lines up pretty good. So, all right, let me show you how I fasten this in, because I forgot to show you this piece during my little show and tell. On my previous rear seat delete, I had a 2x2, and it was positioned up here, and I had a little shelf that I had made to cut that out and hold it. And what that does is that holds each of these sides in firm to the side of the car so that it can't wiggle out and come undone. And I had to bring it up forward so it would clear this, because this is welded. I can't take that out. And so then that would leave this as my cargo area. I decided I wanted to try to put it back behind here. I started with just a 1x2, and it's notched just a little bit to clear this. And it turned out that a 1x2 was a little flimsy. And so I, very crudely, I just took another 1x2 and then glued it to the back to make it into a 2x2. And then you can see I have it beveled a little bit to clear the back of the piece here. So anyway, let me get back to this. I get in here, and then I push that in, and then it just barely, the clearance is just enough to get in there. And then to hold it in, I'm using pocket screws. Now, if you remember, I mentioned that, see, this thing can still pivot up. So if I do something to unweight the car, or gosh, in the event of a rollover, that will still come undone. So my solution to that, you might remember these little hooks that I have installed here. And so what I'm going to do is use some turnbuckles to help clamp everything down. And these hook right into the factory hooks for the back seat. So there's the factory seat in there, the seat hook. And I basically just take that eye, stick it down there. There's not a whole lot of room for working in here, and it doesn't need to be terribly tight. So you can see there, that locks in pretty good. There's what it looks like locked in. There's a turnbuckle. You can see it's hooked into the factory hook, and then my own hook right there. And so that helps hold everything down. Next up, I have the doors. The doors slash floor. It all depends on how you want to treat it. You can either cut this out as one solid piece and then carpet it, and then you have a floor, or in my case, I added a center section with hinges so that I could have doors to access the cargo space below. And you can see that I have notched it to fit in the area where the door goes. This is, I guess, like a fender cutout. And you can see these holes that I've cut that allows me to bolt it to the frame that I had showed you just a second ago. My project was more about efficiency than perfection, so I chose a design that would minimize my need for cutting. These parts are made from 2x2 foot sheets of 1/2 inch MDF. The only parts that needed cutting was the areas near the wheel wells. As you can see, the sheets are square where the car door is not. Again, not perfect, but efficiently made, which is also easier for someone who's limited by time, tools, or talent. And trust me, I am no master carpenter. And so this is carpeted with, it's a carpet that's supposed to match the interior, but it doesn't quite. If I were doing it all over again fresh, I might change the trunk carpet to just black and then carpet this in black. That way I just have black all throughout. I decided to try something a little different. And then I have also carpeted the underside of this so that it looks a little neater. Not only does it look neater, but it also, it's a painted surface under here. And then I've got the painted surface of my frame. And so paint on paint causes what I will call, I'll just call it stiction. They stick a little bit, and then you hear this, it'll, as this thing maybe vibrates a little bit, it will make a rattling sound. And then if I go over bumps or around corners, you hear this little clicking back there. Well, having the carpet there eliminates all of that. So I don't really get any of that. And my previous setup, I had what's called elbow latches on here. And now that I have the trim piece on the outside, there's not really room for that. So I haven't figured out a way yet to close everything. I'm close, but I'll get there, and I'll show you why I haven't ironed that out just yet. So, all right, let's go ahead and put this in. All right, let's go ahead and put in the floor, the lid, the doors, however you want to describe them. I found the easiest way. This is another thing that makes the carpet on the other side, underside good, is because then I can just slide it in and do that. It's a very tight fit side to side, so I don't have to do much to align these holes. The back one is a little trickier. And so at this point, you can see that it will still slide a little bit, so I have to make sure it's shoved back real good. And then I come under here and tighten everything in. I got some nuts. These are just carriage bolts on the top. Snug them down a little bit, and then I check the alignment. You can see that still does. It still can move just a little bit. And then once I'm happy with the alignment, torque them down a little harder. But not terribly hard, because I mean, it is wood. It will split. And you can see what I meant about how close or not close the match between this gray and this gray is. This is the Muddy Buddy that comes with the car, and there's the factory carpet. So it is not a perfect match. And so if I were to cut a new base piece here for the trunk area and carpet it in black and then make this black, then I could make it perfect. So I still think it looks all right. So here is the completed project. fans in the front. And I had mentioned that I didn't have a place to put my my elbow latches, and that's because now that I have this trim piece in here, which you can see it fits pretty well, there's no place for my elbow latch to go. Now I could put the elbow latch up here, but then what happens is the elbow latch, it sticks out and it mounts to this piece. So that means that whenever I lift this up, I would stand the risk of scraping the elbow latch on the seat back, depending on where I have it, and I don't want to risk that. And so I may do some sort of screw down latch, I don't know. And then there's the inside storage area. This side will be where I keep my ham radio equipment. You can see one of my control cables, and whenever I do use it, I run it. That's the cable that runs through that little slot there, and you can see where this power cable for the inverter goes through the other slot, and it's just barely visible right there. It's just this little bitty piece right here that's visible, and I could probably cover that in black felt and make it look a little better. The other side, that's the side where the refrigerator will sit, and it's nothing for me to put it in. In fact, I'll show it to you here in just a second. And under there will go a lithium battery, and that'll be for ham radio stuff. That'll be another video, different video. The build, it's a group build with my ham radio club, and that's not going to happen until November. Here is another look at this area here, which was finished differently on my previous setup, but this doesn't look awful. The black carpet covers up pretty good. Whatever, it looks fine. All right, that's the rear seat delete. This time, I think it's going to be a whole lot more functional than before. It's bolted down. It shouldn't come up or come undone if I go over some bumps or railroad tracks or something. Not that I pull the Dukes of Hazzard in my car or anything like that, but sometimes things do come unweighted. This is a whole lot more secure. I think it is cleaner looking, and again, it's more functional. The only thing, the main reason I took out my previous one is because cargo, if I put a little something here, it would slide forward and wind up on the floor. So I could use something for cargo containment, and oddly enough, I might consider a rear stress bar. I don't need it for my driving style, for structural support. How functional it is, it doesn't matter to me, but what it will do is contain cargo, so I may do that, we'll see. I've shared a few still photos, hopefully that they show details that I couldn't or didn't show you throughout while I was shooting this video. I will also do a write-up for my website and put those in the video description below. Feel free to go check that out. I'll have all of the measurements and everything you need there. Feel free to contact me. Post questions below if you have them. As always, I appreciate you being here, and I will see you next time. Take care.